Welcome to the VisiStage demo. This is just a basic demo of the VisiStage plugin, which is a visual mixing environment for any DAW, including Pro Tools, but you'll need a wrapper for Pro Tools. Unfortunately, we don't have the Pro Tools file quite yet, but we'll get there. Anyway, we're going to be talking about various mixing techniques and stuff like that. Of course, how you mix a track is entirely up to you. We're just going to show you how the VisiStage plugin makes that quicker and easier to get a clean, precise mix, and gives you way more tools than what you currently have at the moment in terms of a mixing environment. Right, so we start by adding VisiStage to all the instruments. If you open up your mixer in Logic, and I'm showing you this in Logic so you can see how it works, it's very easy. Just select a set of instruments, then add the plugin to it, and then you've now got this plugin here. Now I'm going to close this down. I'm going to add it to the output, because everything you do will actually be in the output instance of this plugin. So now you can select all of those, group them, double click to change the name of the group, and then you can start going through. For example, you can right click to give it a color, and then you can go through that. If you click on the master, that'll give all the tracks a color. Of course, you can change each individual track to its own color, but it's just easier just to have them all in one color. Now you can go through, before you zero everything. It's quite a good idea, as you can see down here, that this is a group instrument. So this is like one instrument, if you like, but it's got a whole lot of different instruments inside it with their own sort of native pan settings and fader settings and stuff like that. So it's a good idea to start by mirroring what you've got down there, and you can do that very easily, because here you've got exactly the same thing you've got in Logic. You've got a fader strip, you've got the value for the fader up there, and down here you've got X, Y as opposed to just pan, because you've got X, which is your pan value, and Y, which is your depth value. So down here again, you've got a box which you can type in the value of that pan, and C is center, obviously, with just 0. So, and for those values, you will find that you can set it for your particular DAW, the type of values that you have for that pan pot, so that you can make sure that you're entering the right values into that. So if we go through very quickly, you can see how I do it. So on this one here, the overheads, it's just 0. Actually, it's -1 on the overheads here. So it's minus 0.1. 0.1. Now, as we go through, again, this is 0, 0, so we can ignore that. Kick out is infinity. So kick out, just take it to infinity, as you see here. Then snare top is -1.4, and let's just shrink this up a bit. -1.4, and it's at 0. So snare top is -1.4, and that's at 0. Okay, and so on and so forth as we go through. So in here is -16 and 0. This is anyway. I'll carry on going through, but I'm going to skip doing this. Obviously, we're going to go through and mimic all of these, and then I'll come back once they're done and I'll show you the next step. Right, now when all of those values have been added and mimicked from what's down here, then what you can do is select all of those instruments again down here, press the Option key, and you can zero now all of those. Notice they're still retained up here, but they're zeroed down here, which means that because VisiStage is at the end of your effects chain, but before your pan and your volume faders, that this now takes over, and this doesn't matter anymore. That just becomes irrelevant. So you can now close that down and move to the next instrument, and I'll carry on showing you after I've added all the next instruments. So I'll skip over the setup process and show you what the next set is as soon as I've added all the rest of the instruments. Right, those are all the instruments now added. Now, if you notice that there's some things we didn't add to this, if you go down here, notice that we didn't add VisiStage to the buses or the auxes. And inside this instrument, you'll see that there is also filter bank, which is actually a bus. Okay, so it's not really an instrument. So you're not adding it to the auxes or the buses, you're just adding it to the actual instruments themselves. Now, don't be afraid to add it to every single instrument, including the ones inside these groups of instruments, like massive orchestral groupings or cinematic instruments and so on and so forth, because there is 1,024 tracks on VisiStage that you can use up, and quite frankly, you're going to hit limits on your DAW before you're going to hit limits on VisiStage, and it's completely latency free. So there is zero latency for the audio going through VisiStage, so you can work with it completely with confidence that you're getting a zero latency plugin in a professional environment with 1,024 tracks. Now, there's a couple of other things you want to set up on your DAW. Under Logic in the audio settings, you've got pan law, which is normally set to -3, set it to 0. Again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to give VisiStage complete control. Now, also under mix, set it to pre-fader metering, so that these faders that you see here will exactly mirror the faders that you see here. So you won't be confused if you're looking down here and you see a level. Let's say you're on pick bass and you see some level coming up here, and there's, you know, it'll be the same level coming up here. And sorry, this is me with my voice on the microphone. So just ignore that completely. Anyway, so now, by the way, we have full setup guides for every single type of DAW out there, and if there is not one, we don't support your one, please tell us and we'll find out more about it and see if we support it, and we'll give you some help. Just reach out to us. There's a contact form at the bottom of the website. Okay, so again, it's got fairly comprehensive instructions for every single DAW and how to use it, including the likes of Pro Tools, which talks about wrappers and so on and so forth. Okay, so back here. So now you're all set up. Now, obviously, if we start this playing, everything's right at the limit, blowing it out completely. So to give yourself some headroom, press Shift and then drag down there, and you'll see all the volumes dragging down. And if you open up here, you'll see how far they're dragging down. Okay, so you can see them dragging down, and then you can manage all your limits so that you can see exactly what's coming through, and that'll give you some headroom for all your things, so you can start playing. Now, once you've done that, obviously the normal way to set up a mix, well, the way that I was taught how to do it anyway, is you start by muting absolutely everything. Okay, then if you notice that only the masters are muted, now you open up, unmute your drums, then we solo your kick drum, and then away we go. Now you notice here that there's this was set at 0 on the DAW originally, the kick out, So let's just stick with the main kick in. Okay, now I'm going to explain to you exactly what you're seeing here and how you can manage this so you know exactly what you're seeing here for every instrument. Right, this solid yellow piece, that's what we call your icon. This outline around it is what we call your icon ghost. Then the yellow, I'm going to turn this off here so you can see everything. Then the yellow base down the bottom is your what we call your icon shadow, and then the line around it is what we call the stereo width. Okay, so let's see what we're seeing here. So your icon, in actual fact, is your EQ curve for that instrument, and you can see it dynamically working. And then the outline of that you're seeing there is in actual fact your peak hold for that EQ curve. Now you can set your peak hold for that EQ curve over here. You can set it to infinity, and your reactivity speed for the inner icon, okay, so that it has almost no movement, or it has maximum movement. Then your infinity out here holds this instrument in place so that that outline, that peak hold, never disappears. And then you've got this one here which gives you for that peak hold whether it breathes, we call it, whether it actually has some movement or not. That's your short-term sustain. Then we also have the outline of that icon, which you can, that peak hold, which you can actually increase the opacity for or decrease the opacity for. So we'll put it right up for the moment, and then we'll come back to that, or we'll just lighten it off slightly. Then we have, as you saw, the bass, which is what we call the RMS, which is your sound pressure, if you like, for the stage. It's how much room that's taking up on the stage. And then we have your stereo out there, which shows you how much that is reaching out in terms of your stereo environment. Notice it's coming out much further than your RMS. Okay, so that's all your analysis there. Now we've also got some other wonderful analysis here. We'll turn this on. Now you've got your reverb mist, and you can turn the opacity up or down in terms of your reverb mists. But your reverb mist tells you how much reverb is actually going on in this. Remember that VisiStage is at the end of your effects chain. So you can use all your favorite plugins and color the sound any way you want to color it, and then this gives you your true representation of what that sound is actually doing according to all of your settings on the stage. Now we have another one here, which is a fascinating one, and this really blew me away when I first opened it up and I saw this. Wasn't something I was expecting, and that is what we call your reverb, your track aura. So if you have a look here, this thing jumping around in the background there, that little thing there, that's the true position of that instrument on the stage. While the position you've set is here, that true position is what's actually going on the stage, what's jumping around. So you can see that it's not static in the slightest. And also, here's another thing. When you grow this, you might see it happening. No, it's not happening yet. But some of these, for example, if we go in here, room B, I think. Room B, if we lift up room B. Yes, see now what's happening. Okay, what you've got there, you see that dotted line? That dotted line means it's out of phase. Okay? That shows you that this actual is out of phase. Now, there's a whole help guide on this. I'll show you this help guide because it's quite important to understand how this actually affects you. Under frequently asked questions, you go to here, why is this track showing it is out of phase? Okay? It has an example, and it goes through the entire answer. Because some of these, doesn't matter what you try and do to fix it, whether you open up your gain and you change your phase or whatever, it won't actually fix it because it's actually how the instrument itself was actually recorded. So there's a help file on that. You can go into frequently asked questions and learn all about that and exactly why some instruments show that they're out of phase, even though they're just the instrument itself. It's got nothing to do really with being out of phase per se. So now we'll leave that there and we'll move on. So that just shows you all the different settings you've got there. Oh, the other one here is the crest factor. See that little weeny white bit down the bottom? So notice we lift that up. So that's your crest factor. If it's really spiky like that, that's the amount of compression you've got going on, or how much that lacks compression in this particular instance. And so you can see with some of the instruments, they've got almost no, they've got a whole lot of compression, like this down here has almost no crest factor coming up at all on that. Okay, so you can again get a very clear picture very quickly what's actually going on with that instrument on the stage from a number of perspectives. So right, as usual, you've now done your mixes. Now we start to bring the other instruments in. Let's just unsolo all and bring all the drums in. Now, if we look at snare, for example, snare's sitting right over top of the kick drum, which is fine, because if you have a look, it just frees this. If you have a look, there is the snare's EQ curve there, whereas the kick's EQ curve is here. So in a way, they're okay sitting over top of each other, but why not move it slightly to the side? Notice that we're now clearing it off, so it's actually sitting in its own space. That gives it more clarity. And then we've got, for example, the hi-hats here, and we can give that. And notice how it's sitting well away from here. Now, if you're wondering about where that EQ curve is coming from, well, let's have a look at this here. For the kick drum, for example, this is what we're on here, the kick in. So if we have a look at the kick in, let's just solo that again, okay? And we can see here the actual, on the analyzer, here's the EQ curve here, okay, with a nice little notch up here going on. Let's just give that little notch there. Okay, and notice we're changing the EQ curve of that. Notice the icon's changing when we're changing the EQ curve up here. So again, you can use your favorite EQ plugins and all the rest of it. All we're doing is showing you exactly what's going on. Now, to notice the peak hold is staying there, but that's a setting that you've got here. So you can say, oh, I don't want that peak hold to be there, so let's get rid of that and then bring it back again. So you can then see that going on. So you can see exactly what's going on. And if we want to give that some more round off, and again we'll see exactly that curve that we're seeing there is reflected down here. See exactly what's going on. Okay, now we'll close that down. So you can obviously control exactly what that looks like with your EQ. So it gives you, again, a very clear picture of exactly what's going on. So let's unsolo those. Right, there we go. Well, that's the drums for the moment. Let's just close those down. Now let's bring in our pick bass. That's the next one. Here's our pick bass. Now, again, if we have a look here, here's your pick bass's EQ curve here, and it is mudding a little bit down the bottom there with your kick drum. We can see exactly where that muddiness is, exactly what's going on in terms of that. So we can again pull up our pick bass, close this down here, pull up our pick guitar, pick bass, sorry, pick bass here, and we can look at this EQ curve here and go, Now, obviously I'm being extreme here. But if I want to give it really good separation, I can do that. Now, at the moment, what I'm doing is everything's basically at 0 in terms of a y-axis. Okay, everything's all the way down at 0 for the y-axis, because obviously these are the instruments you want right up front in your mix. Now, so as we're bringing it in, we can now start to bring our other instruments in. Right, now if I select the horns, for example here, now let me just bring these in so we can start to see them immediately as opposed to be waiting for them to come along. Okay, so we'll bring a whole stack of instruments in at once, and then we can see exactly what's going on. Right, so this is selecting all the horns. Now I can move all of those as a group. I can now select the other set of horns. Now obviously I can go in and pick individual instruments within that and move them around exactly where I want them on the stage, but you notice all the ghosting going on as well, all the auras. If I just solo this and I solo this other horns here, okay, you can see the amount of ghosting going on, all the reverb that's happening and all the ghosting that's going on. So these aren't actually sitting exactly where you think they are anyway. And if you move it across, you notice there's more ghosting towards the center. Right, so unsolo all of that. Now let's bring in the clean strumming guitar. Now, have a listen closely to what's going on when I move it around the stage. So you're getting a true spatial mix going on here. And you can sit it out all nicely on the space on its own, and it's not interfering with the horns, it's not interfering with the bass, it's not interfering with the kick. It's sitting out there in a space all on its own. So you can see immediately whether you're getting a muddy or a clean mix straight away. Now let's bring the other instruments in. Let's bring this instrument here in so we can see what's going on with this one. This arena reedy guitar. Remember that this guitar here has already got its own colouring going on here, so you can see exactly what's going on in terms of colouring this, but now you can see a complete visual representation of everything that's going on for this instrument. By the way, I'll just show you this. This can be expanded right across your screen, and everything grows accordingly. And when you hide your panel, you can go and everything grows accordingly so that you can have this on a second monitor so that you can open up and see everything all at once. And scroll across here, you can scroll by dragging, even using the left and right arrow keys. So you've got full control over this. It's a much better way to see exactly what's going on, but I'll just bring it back down a bit so we can see what's happening. Anyway, so this arena reedy guitar has already got all the effects on it, which gives it some distance, but now you're giving it even more distance by putting it into a spatial environment. Now, you want control over that spatial environment, obviously. Well, here's the entire environment here. You can set the environment profile. For example, studio, tight and dry, Studio B, wooden live room, stone chamber, concert hall, so on and so forth. We can go right out to, some quite effects-driven ones like, cathedral or cavern or cave or ethereal space and so forth. So what you're affecting when you pull these up, let's go to cathedral, the ceiling height, the reflection density, and the material dampening. That's what you're actually affecting. And notice all the reverb shadows, all the reverb mist suddenly jumps up there to show you that a whole lot of extra reverb's been added to it because we're in a cathedral. Now have a listen. If we just go back before, and we'll change it. Obviously everything's almost blown out. Now we've also got it's quite extreme. So we've also got stage size. So we'll just hide these for the moment and bring them back. So you got stage size. If you notice all of these lines here, that's your stage. And if I increase these, you see the number of lines increase. In actual fact, what's happening is that stage is growing in size. From like, if you have a look here, if you have a look up here, if I close this down, and close this down, and close this down, and you have a look at this clean guitar. If you have a look here, this goes up to 12 meters in depth, right? 0 meters to 12 meters in depth, okay? As we increase the size, watch what happens to this number here. So that's 4.6 meters as we increase the stage size. that goes 7 meters and keeps on growing, keeps on growing, keeps on growing. So it's getting further and further away. There's more of these lines here, which means it's getting further away. If I take that, shove it right to the back, you'll see what's going on. This takes it all the way out to 100 meters away. That is enormous. It's a massive big stadium, huge big football field that you're actually working within. So you can change that environment to suit exactly the sort of environment you want and have absolute control over it. Let's have a listen to that change. If we bring this right back, here we go. Now we start to play the whole tune. It's just a quick little ditty I put together. Again, listen closely. Notice how everything's getting further away or closer to you. Now, of course, you've got control over that. Even though you've set a setting, you want some enormous, stupid cathedral, you've set your setting. Now you can go in here and you can change your ceiling heights, you can change your reflection densities and everything else after the fact. Even though you've set it some ridiculous amount of size, you can still go back and change everything and fine-tune it and adjust it exactly for you. Okay? So, here we go. So, now you've got that full control over exactly what you want. Now, one of the other things is, let's say you've got this guitar here, this clean strumming guitar. Let's just bring this again across here so you can hear it all the time. Okay, let's just... Now let's say you've got some ridiculous setting going on here. You've got a cathedral, and it's 1,000,000 miles away. But you don't want it to be 1,000,000 miles away, you want it to be right up front. Well, you can override notice it's still sitting in the same place, but it's no longer mixed as it was. So you've got full control, and you can reset that back to whatever that setting would be for that environment. So you can see that you've got full control over every single instrument as to how much it lives in that environment, for how much it is affected by the overall global environment settings for all instruments, so that you can set it for some ridiculously huge big stadium and then mix everything in tight around here, and then, you know, obviously grow your screen so you can get more screen real estate, and then you can adjust everything minutely, and then you can say, no, I want that instrument to be right up front. Even though it's got some distance to it, I want it to be right up front in the mix, and then you can change that individual instrument. Now, you also notice when you select an instrument that it's actually got all of the EQ measurements on there for, remember this is your EQ curve, all the EQ measurements on there, so you can immediately identify, okay, this is very strong around the 2K region. Okay, so you can immediately identify exactly what's going on in terms of that EQ and in terms of its positioning for that instrument. So you've got all of these settings to give you a very clear indication of exactly what's going on so that you can fine-tune your mix in a fully visual environment with a whole lot of very powerful visual tools to give you clues about what's happening and what the mix between instruments is and all the rest of it. Now, the final thing here, just so you can see what's going on, you can also, because you've got all of these VisiTrack plugins on every single instrument, now you can go back and you can say, well, I don't want to bypass, like normally you'd bypass up here for one of them, but you want to bypass them all at once. So you can press this button. Now that bypasses all the VisiStage plugins, all at the same time. And then it brings it back. There you go. So that's just a very quick overview of VisiStage and how you can use it to really make it fast for creating a clean, precise mix in a fully visual environment. Thanks for looking at the demo, and if you've got any feedback, please comment on this video or go to our website and send us an email. Thanks so much.